Regular school board meeting. Mrs. Moore, will you please call the roll?
I will. Mr. Grant?
Present.
Mrs. Hagedorn? Present. Mr. Carpenter?
Present.
Mr. Leeds?
Here.
Mr. Fulham?
Here.
Would everyone please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 1.3, any additions or deletions to the agenda? No? Okay. Moving on to item 1.4. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mrs. Hagedorn? Aye. Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Moving on to Section 2, discussion and comments from the board. Item 2.1, legislative.
Of course, the legislators are not in session again because of Thanksgiving, but they had some things over last week that they passed that affects the school systems. House Bill 214, the bill will require each public school to adopt a policy regarding certain expectations related to the performance of staff member professional duties. The amendment clarifies that schools cannot require employees of job applicants to offer an opinion about specific beliefs, affiliations, ideas, and principles. And then the Senate unanimously passed Senate Bill 29, which would enact laws pertaining to technology providers for education records and data. The bill would require school districts to make public certain information regarding the technology providers they use. And then the committee, the House Primary and Secondary Education Committee, held a fourth hearing of Senate Bill 17, which would require the state board to update the standards and model curriculum for financial literacy and in grades 9 through 12 to include free market capitalization content. The committee held a second hearing of the House Bill 70, which would require schools to adopt a policy regarding the administration of over-the-counter drugs. And then the Senate Education Committee held a third hearing on and accepted a substitute version of Senate Bill 162, which would require public schools to provide certain academic intervention services to each student who demonstrates a limited level in math and English and language arts. The substitute version does the following: allows a school to request to exempt students who would otherwise qualify for required services if they scored at or above grade level in the last two diagnostic assessments and receive a C or its equivalent in the relevant subject. And it clarifies that services are to be evidence-based and additive in nature, and allows schools to provide integrated student supports alongside intervention services. And lastly, the Senate Government Oversight Committee they heard sponsor testimony on House Bill 68, which would prohibit certain procedures to alter a minor child's sex and would designate this act as the Ohio Saving Adolescents from Experimentation Act. This bill also included House Bill 6, which would enact the Save Women's Sports Act to require schools, state institutions, or higher education and private colleges to designate separate single-sex teams and sports for each sex. And then the other thing that's going on is the head of the Senate, I believe, wants to take Thomas Hall's Bill 187 and combine it with George Lang's bill and come up with a separate bill to go with both of those added in there. He does not like each individual bill. But from my standpoint, if these clowns up there were ever in business together, they'd be fired because they haven't done a damn thing. All they want to do is talk about it. Let's get some action. That's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. All right, moving on to 2.2, Butler Tech, Mr. Guido.
Not sure how to follow that.
You're all right.
So before I start, I do want to take a minute to recognize a former coach that passed away, Kerry Clark, long-time coach, was very instrumental in development of the girls softball program here at Monroe High School. He is a 1966 graduate of Monroe, Monroe. And I spent every summer with them. We went on vacation, did everything together. So very, very dedicated for it. And just think of the family during this time, obviously. Speaking of thanks, happy Thanksgiving before I forget, but I'm also not going to really say very much because as you can tell, I brought backup today. We talked a lot about our relationship here with Butler Tech, as well just in general. There's just a whole lot going on, right? And I just wanted to bring our superintendent, John Graff, to go over some of that. Before he gets up, I did want to thank the board for the extension of the land. The horses are going to love that. So I am interested, obviously, I think we're going to extend the fence line for the horses to run and then really figure out what to do with the rest of the land as it can go. But as you've seen, we will use it. So thanks again for everything. Thanks for all that you guys do. And hopefully we will all have a good holiday.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brett.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Again, my name is John Graff. I'm the Superintendent CEO of Butler Tech. It's my pleasure to be here. I'm also a resident of Monroe, so I guess I'm supposed to formally say 427 Brookhurst Drive, Monroe, Ohio, 5050. Since I am on the agenda, I hope I get a few more minutes than the standard 3 to 5 minute time frame. But first, let me say that I'm just honored first to be a resident of Monroe. I think Monroe Local School District is an excellent district. I would say that I specifically came to Monroe in order for my children to be able to attend Monroe Local Schools, and so it's obviously a testimony to the district leadership and the Board of Education. So it's my pleasure to be here this evening. I will also share with you that the successes of Butler Tech, I want you to equate those with the successes of Monroe Local Schools as well. We're a part of all 11 school districts, and so when we share the things that are happening at Butler Tech, that is an equal success for the many students from Monroe that attend our campuses or our satellite programs in which we have here at Monroe at the local school district. So with that being said, I don't have a clicker in my hand, but I guess somebody's going to click for me. Our first success, I'll share, thank you, Jesse. Our first success, the partnership would not be as fruitful without the thought of the district to be able to allow Butler Tech to have a portion of the land, to be able to lease some of the land. We were able to construct the Natural Science Center and opened in October of 2022. It's a great campus. It's one of our premier campuses. I know oftentimes people look at our bioscience campus and say, you know, that's the premier campus, but I would say that in October that changed, and our Natural Science Center campus is one of our premier campuses in which we're really, really proud of, and again, wouldn't be possible without Monroe Local Schools partnership. We did add green engineering, so if you wouldn't mind, Jesse, to the next slide. Some of the things that we've added in the past years, one of the issues that we're facing is capacity. We have more students applying for our campus programs than we've ever had in the history of Butler Tech since 1975. We're turning away almost 1,000 students a year on our campuses. And so we've been working with both of our associate school districts as well as our campus plans, as well as our legislature to help alleviate some of those waiting lists that we have for particular programs. But we were able to do some business program pathways with Cincinnati State, an IT pathway with Cincinnati State, and again, we added green engineering. So in addition to that, on the next slide, you'll see that we've added firefighters levels 1 and 2, emergency medical technician, and welding, which is one of our most popular programs. There's going to be a bridge built here between Cincinnati and Kentucky. They're actually, the latest statistic is that they're going to actually have to hire people from out of country who are welders to be able to construct that bridge over the next years, in the next decade. One of the things that we are committed to is adding welding programming, which we're going to be adding even more in the 24-25 school year, but we added a senior-only welding program this year, of which I do believe that there were some Monroe students that attend that program. So that's just programming that we've added this year. Knowing that some of the campus capacity issues that we're facing during the pandemic, Butler Tech did not receive any of the ARPA funding, and so we solicited the Butler County Commissioners at really identifying 3 specific areas that we wanted to address when it came to the economy and economic development in Southwest Ohio, and specifically Monroe as well. And so the Butler County Commissioners awarded Butler Tech $15 million to expand and add 2 more campuses. One is an advanced manufacturing campus that's actually going to be in partnership with Miami University Hamilton. That will be located in Hamilton. We're still finalizing the location of that. And then in addition to that, we're adding an aviation facility, which will be at the Middletown Airport. High school students can actually get their private pilot's license by the time they leave high school. They're getting their 50 hours of in-flight time. I'm not providing the coursework, and I'm not teaching them how to fly. I'm a passenger, and that's it. But also, we're adding what's called Part 147, which is airframe and power. Students will be able to actually work on the engines. They'll actually be able to work on the airframe of it, which is a very, very high demand industry right now. Whether you didn't know this or not, there are over 500 aerospace firms in the state of Ohio alone. So aerospace, advanced manufacturing, and healthcare are the 3 largest growth industries in the state of Ohio. And Southwest Ohio, and Monroe specifically, is well positioned to be able to handle all 3 of those. And you can see from the commissioner's support that we're going to be able to address those. You'll notice that healthcare is not on here. I'll get to that in just a minute. With healthcare, 2 of the 3 areas that we focused on, the commissioner supported. Part of our legislative advocacy, and I have to give kudos to Mr. Guido as our board president and all the legislative efforts that they have done over the past years. We started sharing this narrative with our legislature about the need to be able to expand our programs. And they heard us over a period of years loud and clear. And so they provided, in the last biennium budget, a $200 million career tech expansion grant, of which Butler Tech was awarded $7.2 million to expand our bioscience campus. So we will be adding robotics in healthcare and engineering. We'll be adding medical assisting to that campus. We are also working with one of our 2- and 4-year universities to create a full bachelor degree of science in nursing pathway beginning for high school students. The nursing crisis is very, very evident. I have 2 daughters that are in healthcare that are graduates, and they can attest, and I can attest to from our business partners, sharing with you that healthcare is in dire need of workers and getting them out into the field very, very quickly. I'd love to say that this is what the campus is going to look like. It will probably be a little bit smaller than that, but we dream big at Butler Tech, and so we're going to continue to advocate for more funding. We're going to be adding almost 25,000 square feet to the campus, which is already at 35,000 square feet. So again, all of our Monroe local school students will be able to access that campus as they already do. I have to make mention again that with all of our board members, and specifically Mr. Guido, going to Columbus and sharing that message year after year. I felt like it was a broken record. I felt like you, Mr. Leeds, saying they're just not doing anything about it. And probably, I would say, we worked on this 4 to 6 years, really, of an effort. And I felt like Bill Murray and Groundhog Day, I just felt like it was the same thing. I kept going over and over and over again. And I think with our business partners coming to Columbus with us and to Washington, D.C. with us, I think we made a significant dent in letting them hear the message. This isn't about just Butler Tech. This is about economic development. So a couple of new initiatives that I want to share with you is that we're seeing a changing need for the credentialing process for industry experts to enter the teacher education force. We typically hire people from industry. So if we're teaching HVAC, we're hiring somebody who has been in the HVAC industry for years. If they're a welder, they've been in the welding industry. Well, when you have to hire a biomedical engineer to teach biomedical engineering, you tell them, by the way, they have to go back to college, and they have a master's degree already, but they have to go back to college and take 24 college credit hours and take a pay cut in order to teach. That's not a real good package for a teacher to want to come into the industry. So we want to be able to relax a little bit of those rules, and we also think that our educators in our Southwest Ohio region can do a fantastic job of teaching instructional practices and pedagogy and classroom management. We want those educators from industry with that technical expertise. The second thing is, and we did get this actually in the last biennium budget, College Credit Plus has been a fantastic thing for students. And I know that it's been somewhat of a burden on local school districts having to pay for the college credit courses. We came up with the idea that we have adult education campuses. We have 2 here in Southwest Ohio. And why not have high school students access our adult education campuses? If you can't get into our welding program in our high school, go to our welding program at night at our adult education campus. If you want your practical nursing degree or your practical nursing certification, take our classes at high school at night. Well, there wasn't a pathway. And so the state legislature just put into the biennium budget, high school students can now access our adult education campuses, and it is of no detriment to the local school district. It is covered by state funds. So our high school students can now access our adult education campuses, unlike the College Credit Plus model in which the district bears the financial burden. So those are 2 really significant changes that our administration and our board members are looking forward to and working forward thinking about getting those passed. And those 2, one of those 2 have already passed. The OTC Plus, Ohio Technical Centers Plus, has passed, and we're currently working on the teacher certification pathway. But why? Why are we making so many changes so quickly? 47%, according to the Governor's Office of Workforce Transformation, 47% of the current jobs are going to be phased out due to technology. That's an alarming pace and rate. And when they say in the coming years, this statistic was before artificial intelligence was even mentioned, less than a year ago. So I would say that those numbers may actually be a little bit more than what they currently are in that statistic. The second one, 65% of secondary students predicted to work in jobs that do not yet exist. That's alarming. And then 75% of companies that are expected to be on the S&P 500 in 2027 are yet to be created. That means we have to move faster than the speed of business. Again, another reason why we're looking at aviation, manufacturing, healthcare, and IT, those are the largest growth industries in Southwest Ohio. That's what our future Monroe and Butler Tech students are going to be influenced by. Those are the areas of growth. That's where if they're going off to college, and we encourage students to go off to college, not to find themselves, but to know what their pathway is. We'd love to say that Butler Tech could be a stop for them before they identify what it is they're going to do at the college level. And frankly, they can start college before they even leave high school, as you all know. But these are the 3 largest areas of growth. Part of this was a vision we had 4 or 5 years ago called Quantum Leap, which was really a bridge about blurring the lines between high school, adult education, college, and the workforce. And so we wanted to be able to create this new vision of an education experience where high school students, if you say, are you in high school? Are you in college? Are you in adult education? Are you in internship? And the answer is yes. You're in all of them. Students have more access to any information than any of us have ever had in our lives with this. These are good and bad, and we know that. But we also know that student choice and student voice is really, really important. So education, business, government, and the public coming together as one ecosystem is what we've all dreamed about when it comes to education. And that's what we're doing with these new campuses and how we're transforming our existing campuses as well. Why? It's because we want to create a sustainable workforce. It is an economic development catalyst. Anytime a business wants to locate in Southwest Ohio, the first thing they ask, where's the workforce? And where's it coming from? And lastly, we want to make sure that we meet the current and future needs in both healthcare, aviation, advanced manufacturing. And frankly, at the end of the day, we're about educating students. We want to make sure that our Monroe and our Butler Tech students are the highest qualified, the most experiential learning that they can have, and that when they put out their resume, they know that those students have the skills and the skill set that they need for both now and in the future. So we do move faster than the speed of business. Senior-only programs, partnerships with Procter & Gamble. We had 100 students that had internships at Procter & Gamble last year. We had high school students go to Boeing in Seattle and do a summer internship as a 17-year-old. I, at that age, wasn't ready to go to Seattle and have a Boeing internship. But kids these days are exposed to so much more content and knowledge. They're very, very comfortable at doing that kind of work. The Bioscience Campus, Hopefield, as well as the Hamilton Advanced Manufacturing. Some of these are new programming. IoT, the Internet of Things, machines talking to each other. That's a reality. There is a job description at one of our local companies called a robotic coordinator. It takes an engineering degree in order to have that position. There's an augmented reality service technician as a job description. These are the future jobs that our students are going to be in. From a Monroe perspective, we've seen growth. We have almost 143 students on our campuses that are Monroe local school students. We're excited about that. And that's the largest over a long period of time, as you can see. I think that goes back to almost 2014. As well as we have some great programming here in our satellite programs in which we have 97 students, and those are FTEs. So what I would say is that those numbers are probably significantly more. We have hundreds of students, but those are 97 FTEs. That means one student, one period of the day is 1/7 of a student. So those numbers are actually significantly larger when you look at the number of students that we serve. So again, why do we do this? We know that there needs to be a disruptive change. With the emerging technology of what's happening in our world and the fast pace at which it's happening, we have to grow and adapt and move quickly as well. A 90-slide presentation encapsulated in about 15 minutes. So I'd love to answer any questions you have. I would say, just in closing, it's been a pleasure working with Robert. He's a remarkable superintendent, very forward-thinking about what he wants to do for Monroe local schools, and I absolutely enjoy the partnership with him. He does a great job. I look forward to working with you as well. And then I can't say enough about Mr. Guido's leadership and work. He's always at the ready to go to Columbus, to head to Washington, D.C., to advocate for Butler Tech and Monroe local schools. He does a great job representing you and the community. So happy to answer any questions.
John, a couple of things. First of all, you guys are top notch, first class in my book. What about are you getting pressure to have some educational things for like Intel and the battery plants and stuff?
Yeah, so one of the things that is that we have to do is that some of our existing programs we have to close at times. We close out of collision, partly with the aviation industry that we're talking about. There's something called EV toll, electric vehicle takeoff and landing, which are actually battery-powered airplanes. Joby announced, J-O-B-Y announced they're building 500 of these planes just north of Dayton. All of that is from the insurgence of Intel coming into play, and so you see a lot of the automotive industry adapting to battery operation. You'll see that the engineers is a very, very high demand for Intel, and then cybersecurity, which we do have cybersecurity program as well. You're going to see, and really Ohio is well positioned. We're within 600 miles of 2/3 of the population. And so when we are having insourcing come back, when we outsourced overseas for a lot of our manufacturing, you're seeing it all come back. And Ohio is no longer a rust belt. It is going to be a high-tech industry. It's still going to be, we're still going to make things. But Intel is going to have a significant influence on Southwest Ohio. But I think more specifically, technology is going to influence all of those industries that I mentioned. So there's going to be a really, really high demand for a workforce, and we have to be at the ready to shift and adapt as necessary.
Good.
I'll just say that I know we at Monroe Local Schools, we value our relationship with Butler Tech. And when we get the opportunity to go to the all boards meeting and see everything in action, what you guys are doing over there is really impressive. I know the last all boards meeting, I went into the robotics, and I was blown away. The things that these kids are learning and what they're doing is, again, at that age, I was more worried about playing sports and worried about doing robotics. So it's impressive. So thank you for everything you guys are doing for the kids.
Yeah, one of the interesting things I'll share with you about the mechatronics program is that we have a partnership with Sinclair, and the students have an opportunity to get their associate's degree in mechanical, electrical technologies, engineering technologies. And Sinclair statewide has a number of students that obtain their associate's degree while they're in high school. Butler Tech has 25% of every high school student who attends Sinclair who get their associate's degree. So 1 out of 4 kids are a Butler Tech student. So, this thought that this generation is not motivated, this generation is not hungry for advancing our world, we just don't see it. We don't see that narrative on our campuses. And I would attest that you don't see that on your campuses in Monroe either. So it's a testimony to really our kids. We've listened to them as to what they want. They want choice, they want voice, and they want to seize as many opportunities as they can. And our job as board members, as superintendents, is to give them every opportunity possible. So
Yeah.
we try to do.
Yeah, I just have a comment on a question, but I've been in the area my whole life, and seeing the transition of what Butler Tech was 2 decades ago to what it is today is probably unfathomable to a lot of people. I mean, you guys have built a fantastic culture. You guys have built beautiful facilities, and you guys have really focused on the education that these kids can benefit from now and well into the future. And I echo both of the statements. You guys are probably one of one in the country. I hear nothing but great things. I love to visit whenever we get a chance to see the students in action at some of the events. And I take a back seat because I realize that they're on a whole other level. And that's a testament to you guys doing great things. And I'm so appreciative that we have that so close to us and available to our students. And I hope you guys continue to grow, and we continue to partner in areas that will continue to benefit all of our students in the area as a whole and in the country as a whole. It's a very, very cool thing we've got going on right here in Butler County, and you guys have done a fantastic job. So thank you, John, and to your team.
Yeah. I'd like to kind of echo what everybody else has said here, but I think Butler Tech is doing an amazing job. I really like that they're adding programs, getting students ready for future jobs that don't exist yet, and then including the green energy program. I think that'll be much needed in the future. And personally, I don't know if you're aware, I think you are a little bit, but my daughter graduated from Butler Tech, and she already finished her first year in college. She's like a sophomore in college because of the classes she took at Butler Tech. And my nephew did get his pilot license, and I have been in an airplane with him. He graduated in May, and I was in an airplane with an 18-year-old. It was fabulous. I loved it. It was a lot of fun. So a testament that students are learning and are getting a good education with Butler Tech. So I think it's good.
So I have said, we're a little bit unique here at Monroe. Everybody talks about the change that we've put in, and that has come through just a ton of work. But I've always shared that it's like what Monroe did, starting our own school district. I mean, it wasn't too long ago when we were fighting to be our own district. So the staff here has done a significant amount of work to get where Monroe is right now, and we'll continue to see that growth and change. So successes of the students that are in our programming starts with the teachers and the staff here at this school. So it's a little different because I still can look at us as a newer district. And a lot of the changes that we've done here at Butler Tech are new as well. So I really think that out of all 11 districts, I could be biased here, but I think we have a lot more in common than anybody else. So you guys hear me try and put this into something that you guys can understand, and I think John is a much better presenter than I am, but
I won't say anything.
Well said.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brett.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Guido.
That building's beautiful. They did such a good job on the building.
Thank you.
It's great at night, too.
That's okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
It'll be all right.
He kind of cut me off there.
Do you want to acknowledge that?
Do you have a question?
No, it'll be all right.
You sure?
All right, moving on to 2.3, finance. Anything from finance?
We did not
No, we had no
meet, so we've
Okay.
got some good updates today, I think, so we'll.
Okay. 2.4, student achievement.
Student achievement. This is my favorite time of our meeting. So one of the things that makes my heart smile, and I enjoy getting these emails about the primary students, and without sharing any names, they have a little boy who struggles daily to form relationships with their peers. There's a sweetest girl in his class that has reached out to him by just going up at recess while he was sitting on the swings and asking if he would like her to push him. That small act of kindness has turned into a new friendship. Kids at this age truly show spirit of kindness. That just makes my heart smile. I love that. Start young with these little guys. So awesome. So I'd like to move on to the junior high. They have Students of the Month for November that have clearly demonstrated the 3 R factors to be better together, relentless effort, and stand up and own it. Our 7th grade Student of the Month was Jocelyn Bolanos. And Jocelyn is so deserving of our Student of the Month. Every day she comes to science, she is prepared to learn, always wanting to get as much as she can out of every lesson. She is not only a super hard worker, but is also very helpful. Without being asked, she will come in and get the textbooks out for her class, or will stay behind a minute or two to help pick things up. I'm so lucky to be working with her this year. Fantastic job, Jocelyn, and congratulations, Miss Linsnick. And the 8th grade Student of the Month is Natalie Haskell. And Mrs. Stanger says, I am so proud of Natalie. Natalie is the student who shows up every single day, and the word that comes to my mind is consistent. She is consistently has a great attitude and consistently puts her best foot forward. She is the epitome of relentless effort. I consider myself lucky to be one of Natalie's teachers. She is kind, compassionate, and a wonderful human being. She is the kind of student that you hope to have each year in your class. Congratulations, Natalie. This is well deserved. And I'd like to move on to high school, where Miss Sarah Deaton was named first team All-State in the soccer Division II, which is pretty exciting. Pretty exciting to announce that. And then Miss Hartzall's culinary fundamental students partnered with Monroe's Food Share program and the Bethany Church Food Pantry for their Butler Tech work-based learning program. And this is really cool. So Ms. Hartzell shared, after seeing the article published with Food Share program, I thought it might be a challenge for my students to put the large donated amounts of graham crackers and a few other donated items into meals or dessert items. Students spent time researching recipes and following the project's guidelines, creating a time, a budget, the grocery list, and making food labels. Students had one practice lab day where they tested out the recipes. After the practice day, we made minor changes and then did our donation lab. We donated over 125 separately packed meals and desserts. We all learned a lot. Students learned they could bread chicken and even use graham crackers and meatballs used like breadcrumbs, as well as using ground graham crackers as a partial substitution for flour. My students thought out the box for sure. I'm very thankful to my teacher neighbors for offering food feedback all week on 18 different recipes. I would have loved to have been able to taste that. Plus the patience of the students as we did this new project. I'm very proud of them. Bethany Church has already requested for us to do that again. I just love that. They took in some food and created recipes and actually made desserts and things for the food pantry. That's awesome. I'd like to end with stating that November 11th was Veterans Day, and I'd like to say thank you and recognize the staff, their families that are members of the Armed Forces, and the students that served or are currently serving, and to say thank you for that.
Good. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to 2.5, MEA. You good? All right, very good. Moving on to Section 3, Communications. Seeing that there's no comments from the public, we will move on to 3.2.
Mr. Silverman?
Good evening, and I want to thank the board for the opportunity to have us here today to recognize Andrew Wilcox, a senior member of our cross-country team. I'm going to let his coach and his mom talk about accolades, but I want to just say, so about 4 years ago when Andrew was, I guess we'll call it between 5 and 6 years ago, when Andrew was in junior high, all I would hear is his Wilcox kid. He's coming up. He's going to be pretty good. He's going to be pretty good. All right. That sounds awesome. So fast forward 4 years, it's been really, really fun to watch Andrew progress, not only as an incredible runner that's represented our school so well at the league, the regional and state level, but just getting to know him. What a cool kid. Awesome in the classroom. You're practically graduating from college right now, right? So, I mean, just the CCD classes that he does and his college courses that he does and his academic aspect of it. But he's a leader on his team. He's a leader as a member of our Halo organization, our Women Athletic Leadership Organization, and just representing the right way in everything he does. So that's what makes it, it's awesome to cheer for him because he's a great runner. It's even more special to cheer for him because he's such a great student and student athlete and leader in our school. And we're really excited because he's going to go run next year at Dayton. And it was really cool to be up there and watch him sign to make that next commitment to play, run at the college level about a couple weeks ago. So with that being said, I'm going to invite Coach Wilcox to talk about Andrew.
Sure. Well, I really appreciate you guys having us here today. It's pretty cool to be able to recognize Andrew. I know most, if not all of you in this room have seen him running the streets of Monroe and logging miles. I would gather that there are several Frisbee golfers and dog walkers at the park wondering where he is on his spring break. So he's pretty much a fixture there. But what's super cool about today is what you can see is the work, what you don't always hear about is the results. Andrew's super humble. We try to follow his lead. I'd love to be shouting from the rooftops how awesome he's done and how much he's put forth. has created really cool results. But that said, today is really about celebrating the culmination of his entire 6 years running for Monroe, 2-time state qualifier for the Division I cross-country meet. And while I will say, I know he has a ton of great memories from the first 3 years, a lot of highs and lows, I'm going to guess that this year felt special. It was really different. There's several things that went into that, a lot of factors. I think it started with that sense of belonging. He made it last year, so he knew this year was a matter of stay healthy, don't get hurt, don't get sick, and he was going to be there again. So you could go into the season with a little bit more confidence, a lot more ability to know that you belong. And that's something hard to do in running. Everything falls on the one person that's out there. Your team is there, you're running in the same event, but it's all on you to finish the time that you want. So I think that started this year. The Dayton coach was fabulous. He came out at the very beginning. He said, you have a spot on this team. Your performance this season does not dictate that outcome. So to already have established a Division I college scholarship before running as a senior, that's really cool too. Also led to that confidence and belonging. I will say that this is the first year in a new full training plan from June to November where Andrew went into meets knowing that he was not going to be broken down, his body wouldn't give up on him at mile 2.5, and he wasn't going to be hanging on until the end of the season, hoping for the best. So super cool to see that work. He ran 2 weeks longer than he's ever run, stayed healthy, no injuries. That was great. Dr. Carpenter can attest, this team has always had a bunch of really great kids. This year was pretty extraordinary. They came together as a group. They understood what it meant to be runners. They embraced the running culture, the running community, and they realized that while they're all out there as individuals running their team, supporting each other, so much fun to be around. And I think Andrew picked up on that. I know Hazel had a phenomenal season this year. It's just been fun to be around. The joy of the team has brought a lot to it. I will say at our house, a super unpopular opinion is that we don't travel for sports unless we earn it. You don't sign up just because you can and you go. I know you are feeling it out with cheerleading, and it's super cool to earn it. So that said, Andrew had to wait till his senior year to run training at Valkyrie. Really even cooler because he got to do it alongside a teammate, Ava Heitmeyer, who was there with him. At that point, he had his fastest time to date, which is a 15:32. He followed that with first place finish at the Firebird, a competitive meet with a bunch of Division I schools. Top 10 at Saturday Night Lights, league champion. He ran at districts just to conserve and be ready for the league, because as most of you know, you try to peak at a certain time in your season so that you can continue to advance. In running, if you don't advance, you're done. Your season's over. So an injury can sideline you in the beginning of the season and you get back in, but at the end, you're done. So he really worked hard on that. What's really cool was the growth and maturity that Andrew showed, especially this season. Rather than being defined as the race time or the race placement, he started adding benchmarks for success that included things like, I'm going to pass them on the hill, or I'm going to kick sooner. And I might be able to speak for Mr. Silverman, but in watching Andrew over the years, kicking sooner was not always a strength. So at the regional meet, and Troy has a lot of hills, it's a hard course, Andrew started his kick about 400 meters out, and I think we all held our breath. But he knew he had it. He had the confidence, he'd set that goal, he practiced at that course, and he knew it was his. And he passed 3 down the stretch to finish 4th for a first-team all-region 15:29, which is the fastest 5K for Monroe, and also the fastest 5K for our league in its history, which that's pretty cool because it was a hard course. I will say that Andrew ran at the state meet, and anybody that asked how he did, his answer pretty much for any event is he'd like to do better. That said, it was better than last year, and he had a phenomenal experience, great group of kids. But what was the coolest was the day he was supposed to start his break, he had a phone call from Coach McKinney inviting him to be one of the top 12 seniors in the state to run for Team Ohio at the Mid-East Cross Country Championships, which was last weekend. Great experience. They had a warm-up run together. They stayed at a hotel. They had team dinners, team bonding, and then the next day they got to all wear Ohio jerseys, compete together. Ohio unfortunately came in second. But that experience is what defines the running community. Opportunities where people see you as more than just a runner. It was about character, it was about perseverance, and it's what they've done for the 4 years that led up to this point. So what a big honor to be included in that. And he's had a training schedule on his wall for the full year, and it has never had Mid-East on it. So in his wildest dreams, I don't think that was ever something that was attainable. So to get that phone call, he was over the moon. It was really exciting. proud for him. I also want to say he did all that while maintaining a high GPA. He's going to graduate with an associate's degree and obviously attend the University of Dayton. And I want to thank everyone. I kind of, the last minute, thought, let's have some well wishes for Andrew to stick some Post-it notes on his door, and it quickly went south that it was long letters, big notes that people were sending me good luck putting on a Post-it note. But I only asked about 25 or 30 people and ended up with over 78 notes to print out and put on his door that he woke up with. They're now in a book to save. So I want to thank everybody who submitted those. What an awesome thing to wake up to, and what a great community that supports athletes and runners and everybody else in this community. So with that, congratulations, Andrew, and it's been an honor coaching you the last 4 years.
Congratulations.
You've never seen these.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Great job.
Don't run too quick. I just want to say one thing because I love to talk. Yeah, don't go too quick here. You know, a lot of the times team sports get the focus, right? Football, basketball, baseball, they get a lot of attention from the local media, from social media, whatever. I've only got to watch him run a few times, but I've never been to a track event nor a cross-country event in my life. And the reason I went out was because I heard this kid's pretty darn good. And it was really fun. The culture that's around, if you've ever been to a track event, I mean, it is phenomenally fun to watch. The kids are amazing. They bust their tails. Just make sure, I know you know this, but don't for a minute think that you are anywhere below a team sport. We are so proud. I am so proud of everything that you've done for this. Thank you to your coach and your mom for always putting you in the forefront and giving you an opportunity to represent Monroe so well. I'm very humbled to get a chance to watch you, and I can't wait to see what you do at UD and watch your career there and continue the great job in the academic world and beat some PRs up there and have fun, all right?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right.
Great job.
Good job.
3.3.
Hello, I am here to present our Student Success and Wellness Funds. So part of that is we have to present our one plan, which Jody's going to talk about more when she talks about report card, but we basically have 3 main goals, which are listed up there. I'm not going to read them for you. And each slide thereafter tells kind of our action steps for each goal, but really the purpose of this is to show you how our Student Success and Wellness Funds are woven into our one plan goals. So go to 2. So really, and I know you guys have this in the on board docs. This goal really is what aligns to how we're spending our student wellness and success funds. That grant is put into our general fund, but we have to prove that 50% of that grant is spent on physical and mental health services. So we do have a comprehensive counseling program, K-12. We also have success liaisons, Butler County success liaisons too. And we also have a district mental health coordinator, which we pay part of her salary, and then she's also contracted with Access Counseling to provide mental health services. So that is how our student wellness and success funds are utilized and aligned to our plan. So that's all I have.
Very good.
Questions?
Very good.
Any questions?
No.
Thank you.
Jody wants control.
Yes.
She said, I got this.
She's like, I'm in control.
I said, you got it.
Yeah. Okay. We'll see if I do. Okay, so we're going to try this a little bit different tonight than what we've usually done with our report card presentation. I'm going to do a quick overview of district, and then each principal is going to come up and give you a little bit of information about their building report card. So, as you all know, Robert presented at the end of September that we had earned our 4.5 stars. We're very excited about that, and I just think we need to recognize that that is definitely a combined effort of all staff, families, students, all of you, and it's a great accomplishment that we're very proud of. But we do know that we need to get that other half up there so that we've reached 5 stars. So, one of the things I'm going to do real quick is just give you just a little bit of detail about the report card. This slide right here shows the different components of the report card, and there are different measures. So that in the little circle it tells you, like, for example, achievement component, there's one measure. Gives you the different measures in each of the components. And each measure, they all have different formulas, different calculations. Not all schools will have all the same measures on their report card, and you'll see that tonight with our district building report cards. And also, these are weighted as well. So when Robert was talking in September about our report card, and we were talking about Ross, their report card measures are a little bit different than ours because we're measured. We have more components in gap closing. That's the 6 measures. That's the largest. We have every measure in gap closing. They do not. So that's why it's kind of hard to compare. It's not apples to apples. Okay.
That is good to know.
This is just a quick snapshot of our report card. As you can see, we earned 5 stars in graduation. We earned 5 stars in gap closing, which those are great accomplishments. 4 stars in progress, and 4 stars in achievement, and then 3 stars in early literacy. The college career workforce and military readiness measure was a report only this year. The soonest, the earliest they're saying they're going to make it a measure will be 24, 25. So we're kind of watching that. I don't know if that's really going to happen that year or not, but we'll keep our eye on it because it's something we do need to look at. You can kind of compare that, if you remember, to the measure, I just lost it, the college and career readiness measure. What was the name of it? I can't think of it now. That was on recently, a couple years ago on the report card, and they removed that. So this is kind of comparison. They've just increased it. There's more measures in there. So you're probably wondering, or maybe wondering, how close are we to 5 stars? So we earned 3.857 points. They take the points, convert it to a star rating. To receive 5 stars, you have to have 4.125 points. So we're close. So we can keep an eye on that and see if we can get to that 4.1. That's the magic number that we need. So what are we doing to help us get there and to improve our achievement for all students? Nancy just showed you our one plan. Our one plan is driving everything. That's a 3-year plan. We're in our 2nd year of that plan. We did a lot of pre-planning for that with our DLT. As you can see from her presentation, there's a lot of bullet points there. I did not include that, but you can refer back to hers if you want to. I'm not going to go over all the things that we are doing. But these are, what we've done is, these are the district big umbrella action steps. We have broken those down into tasks over the 3 years. And then the buildings all have taken these and they've broken their steps down as well. So we're all working under these 3 big ideas, these 3 big umbrellas. We found that that we were missing some systems that we needed to put in place. And also, another big one for our progress and for our gap closing was our MTSS framework that we're working on. And a couple of the principals are going to talk about that in just a minute when they're up here. So that's our overview. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'm going to pass it off to Mom.
I have one question, Jody. The units of measure, will those ever change? Will they decrease for us as a district at one point, or will they always stay the same?
The ones that we're graded on?
Yes.
Depends on our population.
Okay, that's what it's
Our
determined?
enrollment, yeah.
Okay.
One of the things, though, there are some moving targets in some of those numbers, so they do increase. So we also have to keep an eye on that.
Okay.
Hey, Jody, how often do you get reports on this to track progress? Is it once a year? Is it multiple times a year?
On report card rating?
Yeah.
On what no, we don't get anything from the state on that.
So we don't really know where we're at with the state directly.
Right, it's just all the work that we're doing, we're monitoring it. We're looking at it.
And if they do make changes like Dave's talking about, how often does that happen and how do they alert you? Do you just,
So like,
go ahead.
so like the changes for, like when I said some of the measures, the numbers change, the targets change, we do know those. Those
Okay.
are out there already, because those were published 10 years ago, so they show you.
So if something were to change and it pivots our number where we're now decreased or increased what we thought, we're going to obviously address that and make changes as necessary to make sure that we're hitting those. Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, good evening.
Hello, Mr. Prohaska.
Yes. So keeping this short and sweet, I want to hit a couple highlights, some areas that we need to improve on. So the overall page, you guys see our star rating. Jody knows how much I love stars. We got a whole bunch of stars, right? So, but one that I'm very proud of is the 4-year graduation rate. You know, you might say, well, why isn't that 100%? I mean, some of that, there are some factors in here that I've told you in the past that have to do with kids that are year 23s. But I'm telling you right now, we don't have a problem of a bunch of kids, like 5 kids dropping out of school. It's not happening. Some of this is kids have moved away, but they're still in their books. We're trying to figure out where they're at, or year 23s. And like I told you back in the summer, the number of kids that we started with, we ended with graduating. So we're very proud of that number. Sometimes these numbers look a little skewed just because of the requirements by state. If you'll flip to the next screen, thank you.
You're in control.
You've got control.
Oh, I got it. Okay, here we go. Hey, so a positive that I have to show is even though it was only 4 stars, is that we're making progress. And I know it's a little bit harder for you guys to see on there, but we are showing exceeding student growth expectations on our state assessments. Not that I'm worried about that at all, but we are doing a pretty good job, because I know it's hard for you to see, but off to the right, or in the bar where it says not offered, you'll see it's hard to see, but it says biology, American history, and American government. We are exceeding expectations by a larger magnitude than across the state, which is a huge plus. And then off to the far left, it's hard to read, it's English 2 and Algebra 1, 9th grade and 10th grade courses. We're also exceeding above the state growth on that as well. But that's a positive, but when we think about where could we improve, and that is when we look at the subcategories. And I do not have a screen for that, but we do have to get subcategories. Could be in our EL population, our African American population, just those kind of subcategories. We definitely need a special ed category. We could look at free and reduced for lunch, kids socioeconomic disadvantage. Those are areas that we could definitely improve. Overall, we're doing a great job, absolutely great job. But it's nice that we can look at the data that closely to know where do we need to look. So with that being said, the next thing that we need to work on, and I wanted to, I was almost coming up here to say negatives. It's not negative. It's, I put down just work to be done. And you can look, one of the areas that we have to get better at is our absenteeism, our chronic absenteeism. That is excused and unexcused absences. I want you guys to understand that. And then you might sit there and say that percentage is pretty high. That is not much different than schools around the area. It has gone up since COVID, but we are doing things currently to make sure we can get that number down. You see the goal was 20. We'd love to get that down to 15, and that's going to be some tough work up ahead. So that gets tied into how do we help meet the needs of those kids in the subcategories? How can we reduce chronic absenteeism? And that's what leads us to each child on track. And what I wanted you guys to see was this. Each Child on Track is an initiative set forth through the state of Ohio to get, yes, as it says, get each child on track. What we're trying to do, and I'm not going to read over to the right, but over to the left, so what are our next steps to get every kid on track? Attendance interventions, behavior interventions, academic interventions, which coincides with creating a functional MTSS process at the high school level. So in a nutshell, if we want to make improvements in the weeds, like with our subgroups, if we want to improve our overall attendance rating, our chronic absenteeism, it's going to be through the MTSS process that we're developing. And it's not going to just take this year. It's going to take a couple years to really get it up and running. But I will have to say that the work that we've done thus far has really put a dent into us getting with kids and finding out, hey, what's going on with them and why are they having issues? So this is for you to look at some point. It's not for me to dive into the weeds, but what does a true MTSS process have? You've got tiers of supports, and I just wanted you to see that as something that we're working towards. A lot of this we already do. We're already doing it. But now putting structures and frameworks about what we're doing, just it'll move us in the right direction. We talked today as a leadership team about being more strategic in everything we do. We definitely don't run around like a Chinese fire drill. I think when I first got here, we kind of operated that way. But we are getting to the point that we're becoming very strategic in everything that we do. And, hopefully we'll get to that 5-star rating. But at the end of the day, I'm going to be honest, I don't give a crap about 5-star rating. I want to make sure that every kid is prepared for whatever that next stage in life is. So I'm done. Do you have any questions?
Tom, do the kids know that we're after Ross?
They know that?
Yeah.
Do the kids
They don't
know?
know that. We know that.
Yeah, but the competition, you know what I mean?
A little friendly competition.
Well, yeah, you just kick their butt and go on. But
Can I say something to that? And it is sometimes where, I coached football for a long time. If I'm more worried about what the opponents are doing for game planning against me, I've got my priorities wrong. All I know is I can do what I can do for my kids to make sure that they're prepared for that game. And at the end of the day, that's what's really going to make the difference. And it is in our preparation, knowing that the strategies that we're putting in place is going to, I know we talked about that with Ross, but our student body is very different than that student body. To be honest with you, I'd rather have what we have.
Sure.
Yeah.
We've got a lot more variety than we do. It creates a lot more challenges for all of us in all our grade levels. But I think we're definitely rising to the challenge. We got kids that are coming from great homes that have a decent amount of income. We got kids that are struggling to make just to have a good place to sleep at night and everything else in between. And I just know that the more we focus on the kids and the work we're doing with them and putting things like this in place, putting those structures in place, we're going to see it pay dividends down
Sure.
the end of the road. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's okay. But, my feeling is, if as a kid, did I do my part? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I did my part, I'm happy. It's like a coach. Did you leave it on the field? Yes, I left it on the field. That's all I can ask.
Yeah.
So-
And I think it goes with when we talk about our portrait of the graduate, all of us have talked about that grit, that collaboration piece. I mean, that all goes into this as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's getting harder and harder with each grade level. That are we making sure that we're holding our standards and we're pushing kids and that they could rise to that challenge without them just because something went wrong, they just go kaput. So yeah, it's definitely a challenge for all of us at all grade levels.
Anything else?
Does that count as part of my time? Because you asked a question.
Did you? I stopped the time when Tom asked a question. Did you see the time? Oh, it went black.
Thank you.
I got to get to an interview. Happy Thanksgiving.
5:36.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks.
Mr. Brask, I'll tell you what. Good evening. Happy Thanksgiving to you all, and I'll provide my address as well as Mr. Brask did. 310 Wellington Court, Monroe, Ohio, 45050. I don't know if that gives me additional time. I'm going to go ahead and request that. So here. All right, he's setting up for success. All right, so we are thrilled with our 4 out of 5 star rating for the junior high building. Very proud of that. Work with an incredible staff. We have tremendous kids. We're really thrilled about the 4 out of 5. But I use thrilled and not really satisfied. We know there's work to be done. We have a motto and a theme that we say, it's embrace the chase. And that's something that we talk about with the kids. I say in our opening grade level meetings with the students. The kids know, Mr. Leeds just brought this up about kids doing their part and competition and just doing their best. And I share with the kids how competitive a person I am, to the point of where none of the teachers will play cards with me on the Washington, D.C. trip. That's just the kind of person I am. So I try and instill that within our students, because everybody plays a part, everybody plays a role in what we're doing here. And I do share these results with them, not because of this is the only thing we care about, because kids just need goals and clear learning targets to strive for. So I'm very upfront with them. And again, we're thrilled with the 4 out of 5, but we know there's progress to be made. And here's our specific progress components. We are rated in 3 of the categories that Jody mentioned to you all earlier. We are 4 out of 5 stars for achievement, which is just really about how they perform on the assessments for the state, progress, and then gap closing. And the gap closing is really about those subgroups that Mr. Verhaska was referring to. So 4, 3, and 4. And then here's our highlights. So the dark gray there for 8th grade is for language arts. And our writing scores improved tremendously in the spring of '23, to where all praise goes to our students and staff doing that. We really did some instrumental work in our TBT process that Jody mentioned, but we saw some great results in our writing and language arts scores. So that dark gray is excellent. That means they completely crushed that category. So that's great. The light blue, which is 8th grade math and 8th grade science, was also above expectations, so that's another celebration for us. And then as a whole building, we were green and blue there, so at the very top. So we're pleased with that. We have some areas of improvement, which I'll get to as well. But here's our gifted progress. So we are looked at one of those categories that Jody mentioned. Some school districts aren't looked at, like the Butler Techs and of the world. We have to adhere to some gifted progress. And the junior high, Jody, I don't know how many years, but was 1 star for a very long time. And that was a problem for us. With the help of Mrs. Stratton and Jody, and obviously the support of the board, we were able to bump that up for 3 stars. And I'm not going to say it was maybe a state error, but we feel like some of our reporting data could have been maybe higher than that. So, it's under appeal right now. So we do feel like that could be higher, but 3 stars was the minimum of our expectations, and we definitely are there. But we definitely have some things in place this year, including working with our gifted intervention specialists, working with our kids at the junior high, which is something that we haven't had done before, but they're now in 7th grade math and language arts, and that's in support of Mr. Buskirk and Jody and Nancy, and just providing our kids at the junior high with those services that were only at the elementary before. So we're making some strides, but this was for the spring of last year, and that's another celebration for us because we were so long at that single 150 star, and now we're here. So that's another success for us. Areas of improvement, we definitely have to target 7th grade math. That's a huge area that we need to tackle. It's something that my math department knows I'm red in the face talking about. And I have a slide following this with our next steps in terms of how we're going about addressing it. But, basically what we permit, we promote, right? So we know it's an issue. I'm very upfront with that. Our staff's aware of it. Obviously, I'm not presenting that information with the kids. But we know it's an area we need to improve on. And, basically, we just don't make any changes, don't make any adjustments to what we're doing, and we're going to expect the same results.
Right.
So we've got some things in place this year. And like I said, I have a slide to talk about that. All right, and then here's our subgroup category. These are two of the subgroups that Ms. Verhaska mentioned. It's the same for the junior high as well. We are very close with our special education, which is that light blue bar graph there. Those red dots are basically, like Jody mentioned, are calculated targets from the state for our gap closing that they want us to meet. So you'll see our students with disabilities in special education, we are extremely close in math. And then language arts, we have a little bit more distance there. At the very bottom, that red bar graph is our English language learner students. And we've sought to address that as well. We hired an ELL specialist for the junior high just last year. She does a terrific job, but it's something that our district, the leadership team's aware of. We're taking steps to address that as well. We've had some resources put in place now to kind of further the support for those students. Just this week, I had 2 more English language learner students move into the district or into our building. So it's like a moving target, basically. It's a challenging subgroup, but it's something that we're going to rise to the occasion to meet their educational needs. So that's something that we're working on addressing as well. Okay, so next steps. We talked about math for Math 7. We have enlisted in some math coaching cycles, and that's been a great resource for us. Jody has helped us out with that. They've met with 2 of our math teachers at the junior high, and then the next 2 math. So that's been a great thing to have and add into our supports. We've been reviewing the Ohio model curriculum in terms of how the state is expecting us to review math standards. So that's been part of that process, doing some curriculum mapping. And then our TBT process has been great as well. We're really identifying like the English language learners, special education subgroups, how we can really provide additional supports to help those students meet their educational goals. So those are things that we're really implementing this year at the junior high. So again, thrilled with what we had last year, but we were never really satisfied. So always work to be done. Questions for me?
Questions?
Well, 7th grade, I mean, that's been like historically, that's always been our struggle, has been 7th grade, right?
You're right. It's been a challenge for a long time, and Joe can attest to that. During his time at the junior high, it's always been a challenge for us. Part of that transition to the junior high is tough on kids, not just academically, but socially, emotionally. Like, there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
There's also, when you look at, and I'm not trying to explain data away because it is what it is, but 7th grade is the first year that we accelerate our kids in mathematics. So you take your top 25% and they're taking 8th grade math and they take the 8th grade assessment, and then you have your 8th grade top 25% taking the Algebra 1. So that does skew the data at 7th grade because you're taking, that's 60 kids that would have passed that 7th grade test.
Yeah.
So it does skew our data. And there are certain districts, Mr. Leeds, that don't do those kind of things. So, I would prefer to provide those opportunities to challenge our students and continue to do those kind of things. And we'll work with those, work with the kids and continue to push them and make improvements. But any district that does that in 7th and 8th grade, which most districts do that because you want to be able to provide that opportunity for those kids to take college level courses of mathematics in their junior and senior years, which is very important that we offer those kind of things, whether it's CCP or whatever, that you have to start that path in 7th grade, and that does skew that 7th grade math considerably.
That's correct. Not trying to excuse the data, but that is true. And Algebra 1 is taken in 8th grade for high school credit. So that's that part of that acceleration point to get those kids a jump start for opening up some math classes for them at the high school level. But Mr. Carpenter, you're exactly correct.
And do those students that are accelerated, that 25%, do they generally perform at expectation for that subgroup of
Yes.
students?
Yes.
So could they be challenged further, or are they good?
We feel pretty appropriate with the model that we have
Okay.
right now, with this, how we're placing the students. Not to get into too much of the numbers, but each honors math class is having about 25 to 27 students in it. We have 2 of those offerings per grade level. With our student population, that's about appropriate with what we've seen with progress, because no matter what math class they're in, the state still has expectations for them to show growth.
Sure.
So we can't just put 90 kids in there, because if they don't meet those growth components, and that hurts us in those categories as well.
Yeah.
But those seventh grade students that are taking, they do not count as seventh grade. They take the eighth grade test, so they are not counted in seventh grade.
Seventh grade numbers.
Yeah, so they showed up as 8th grade data on this year.
Okay.
Or for the past spring.
Yeah.
So should those, if that subgroup was taking 7th grade math, we probably would, I know I'm restating what you guys just stated, but we probably would not be having this conversation.
Well, there's still room for improvement.
As far as what the state is asking us to do, I'm not.
Yeah. And that's something that Nancy and I have talked about, definitely, but we feel really confident with the plan we have in place this year. So that spring 24 report card data, we feel confident in so far with the steps we've taken.
Okay.
Absolutely. Great question.
And with the English learner, I mean, I'm assuming that's a newer thing for this area in general. Is it something that, I mean, because it's probably a newer demographic that we're serving?
It's an increase. It's not newer, but it's an increasing.
That's a better way to put it. Yeah. Is that something that we need to continue to give assistance and make sure you guys have? Do you have what you need to be successful there? Is there something that you need from us to make sure that we're getting those students what they need?
So I don't want to speak for Mrs. Stratton, but she does a terrific job of evaluating the resources and supports that we have, and anything that we request, and go to the leadership team for and say, hey, like I just said, we had 2 kids move in this week that I'm not really sure what their English language proficiency is at this point. But it's a constant. And it's not just to junior high, it's all buildings are experiencing that. So it's a moving target for us, but I will say that, like, as a building principal, I know I can always go to the district cabinet. I know I can always approach the school board if, like, hey, we need to start thinking about this with staffing or supports. And like I said, we just hired a specific junior high ELL teacher to support those students. Like, we've never had that before, and that was hired this year. So there's been steps taken, and it's a, like I said, moving target, but resources have been provided along the way with that. Absolutely.
Good.
Good.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you for letting me come here today to speak. For the elementary, we came with 4.5 stars. Very proud of that. Our teachers have been working really, really hard. They put in extra hours. They spent a lot of time together. They are extremely proud of this score. I'm extremely proud of them for what they've accomplished. My goal, just so you know, if you're looking at the PowerPoint that is on the board docs, I was trying to be fancy, so I added some like transitions to the slideshow. Some of the stuff that might not show up. Just so you know. So I'm just trying to highlight 2 different things. One really good thing, our gap closing. We're 5 stars in that. When you look at this, so this is our English language arts, the same thing that Logan was sharing. We hit really, really well on this. Our performance on this was very, very high above the goal. The only one we did not make was the students with disabilities at the very bottom. It was 51.7% was the goal, and we're like, I think we're like 47%, or I mean, we're really, really close. So we are really proud of all these scores. What this, and let me go to math too. So the next one is our math achievement. Again, we are meeting everything, and not just meeting the goals, we are far exceeding the goals. And what this shows is, and even on like our English learner population is the red, the second from the bottom one. This is last year's data. Last year we had 1 ESL teacher for over 80 kids. Her caseload was tremendously high. We added another one this year, but this score is based with 1 teacher that had a humongous caseload. This speaks to what she was able to accomplish with her kids, but also what our teachers were able to accomplish. They do such a great job with just pushing the rigor really hard with all our students, but also differentiating for all those kids. They have so many different needs in each of their home rooms, and they work very hard with the intervention specialists, the ESL teachers, our gifted intervention specialists, to really differentiate for each of those subgroups within their classes. So I am extremely impressed with what they do, and if you got to see them teach and work on a daily basis, you'd be very impressed as well. They do a fabulous job. So that is our, my praise for our building. We're really proud of this. So something to focus on, early literacy. This is students moving from off track to on track. So every fall, we give a benchmark assessment. We use an Ames Web is the system that we use. And students who score on their composite reading, so it's made up of oral reading fluency, vocabulary, silent reading fluency, that's it, to get their composite score. And anyone who scores in the 16th percentile or lower is considered off track. So this graphic shows, if you look at the top bar, the 65.5 in blue and 34.5 in red, that is second grade diagnostic to third grade diagnostic. So that's the fall of second grade to the fall of third grade. The blue stands for the number of students that started off on track and we moved, or started off track and we moved to on track. So they came into second grade 16th percentile or below. By the time they started off in third grade, they were now on track. So 64.5% or 65.5% of them moved to on track. 34.5 stayed off track. Okay? So that's a really good thing. When you look at the next bar, this is third grade. This is fall of third grade to spring of third grade, because the third grade, at the end of third grade is when they take their OST to determine if they met the reading guarantee to go on fourth grade. So we had 8.7% make it and 91.3% not make it. So that is our focus for improvement. I do want to point out, this isn't an excuse for this, when you go from second to third grade, there is a significant number of students identified with learning disabilities in those age groups, and many of that 91.3% are students with disabilities, with reading disabilities specifically. And not that they're not going to make it, and our goal is for them to make it. Sometimes it does take those students longer to, meet that, grade level reading expectation. So, but we still want to focus on that. And some of the things we're doing, this is not just a third grade goal, but it's also a second grade goal. And I know that Melissa in kindergarten, first grade is working on this as well. We are noticing from COVID that a lot of the early literacy skills that students used to come to third grade with, they don't really have anymore. So we have had to do a little bit more basic phonics and phonemic awareness instruction. So last year, our third grade teachers, and many other teachers in the district too, but they all got Orton Gillingham training, which is a research-based phonics program that is a very successful and popular one. They all got that training, and they're doing it with their intervention time. Many of them are also adding it into their whole group instruction, so all third graders are getting that phonics instruction, not just students who are behind. And then are focusing on our teacher-based teams when they meet bi-weekly. Their focus is on breaking down the standards and creating clear learning targets for all of our students. And most of their focus is on phonics instruction. Prefixes and suffixes our third graders are working on. Really teach them the word meanings and helping them to understand what words mean when they're trying to go for the reading comprehension. So we know that is a focus for us, and that's what we're really working, not just third grade. Again, it's not just third grade teachers that need to work on that, but all second grade, all third grade, our intervention specialists, our ESL teachers, they're all focused on improving that reading instruction in third grade. So while we have our achievement is really high, we want to make sure that we are getting those students who are still off track. We've got to get them to the next level, because the goal by the end of third grade is now you're not learning to read anymore, you're reading to learn. So we need to make sure we're getting all those students where they need to be, so when they get into fourth grade and beyond, they're ready to learn and ready to soak in all the information they need when they keep growing and get to Butler Tech one day. So that's all I got.
One thing I did want to clarify with Joe's data up there, it's 91% are not, that's not 91% of the whole third grade that's off track. It's just the 90.
It's pretty small.
Yeah, it's a small number, and they knocked out 65% of those kids at the beginning of third grade, and then they knock out another 8% of those kids. So again, by the end of third grade, we have very, very few number of kids that are off track. It's just that.
I looked at this number earlier, and I'm pretty sure that second grade number was only like 45 kids. So that 65.5% and 34.5% combined was only 45 kids.
Okay.
So it started off with 45 kids. 65% of that 45 got on track, and then there was, 20-some kids left. No, less than 20 kids left. And then only 8.7% of that moved up to the next time. That makes sense.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, so,
That's good clarification.
Yeah, it's not the entire second grade, it's just the students that started off track.
Yeah.
okay,
Makes sense.
yeah. Yeah, thanks for that clarification.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm here to talk about the primary. We do not have as many indicators as the other buildings, but I still have the cutest kids, I think. Looking at our report card, that's not what it should be, Jody.
You could have been rather than there. When you sit back up. There you go.
There's I need to go back a page. Can you go back?
That's where you're at.
Yeah, but I want the report
I
card
don't
right
think
there.
that, I mean, that'll take you all to an exam. If that's what you want.
That's not the one we've had.
What she's doing, but it's not showing up the way she wants it to show up.
Okay, well, go back to the other one. Regardless, I'll talk to you about the two areas. First of all, gap closing, we were 5 stars. We're very proud of that. I remember way back when I was a teacher, we kept saying, we've got to close the gap, we've got to close the gap, we've got to close the gap, because we didn't do that very well. And now I think our whole district is closing the gap. So it does take time to improve on these. With this new star rating, the thing that really threw me for a loop that is frustrating to me is our early literacy score, 1 star. And I want Jody and I have talked at length about this. You know how competitive I am, so I wanted to get this fixed. But it is a score for kindergartners coming in the fall. So essentially, we are scoring them on what they know before they came to us.
Yeah.
And that is frustrating. And then there's one more mark as they're going into first grade. So Jody and I started talking, and we're starting to do a lot of different things with curriculum. We're doing Haggerty, which is a phonemic awareness where they hear the sounds. That's the start of learning how to read. And we're starting to do that as early as preschool in our building. And I have a wonderful preschool teacher who you have to know, Jessica Salyers. We have kind of paired up. We thought, okay, if we're going to be held to a score before we get them, then we are going to try to target all the preschools in the area to see if they will start doing the Haggerty program with us. We've already had Early Edge on board. They came in twice last week to observe. They've ordered the materials, and after the new year, they're going to start teaching that to their kids. And we're going to systematically contact all the preschools in the area. We also want to bring back, kind of with COVID, it got canceled, was our spring kindergarten night for all the parents, so they know what to expect. So if they're not in a preschool, they know what we do expect, so we can try to get that score up. It's just frustrating that we're tied to something that doesn't necessarily, we can't really control. We can control our kindergarten scores. We are going to switch. On this slide here, you'll see also, Jody sat in her office and started doing some tabulating. So we used to use the KRA to show who's off track. And as you can see, we had 82 students off track. We looked, well, if we use AimsWeb, would that make a difference? And it does make a difference. So from now on, we're also going to start tracking with the state using AimsWeb instead of KRA, because that takes it down to 46 students not on track. And again, this is a process. It's not going to increase just next year will be 5 stars, but at least we're making a plan to move up with that. So we are creating partnerships with the preschools. Also, I just see in our instruction at school with our Ready Gen, the TBT meetings where they're looking at the data, they're focusing on direct instruction. I mean, I laughed one day, I was going around doing my Hornet of the Month, and they were all on the exact same lesson. So that shows that we're very consistent with what we're teaching. Also, another piece of our scores that we're missing, how Joe was saying, like from second to third, third to fourth, fourth to fifth, since we are isolated just kindergarten and first grade, we don't have that first grade to second grade score that I can see, you know, how they're going from first to second grade. So, because it kind of cuts off at our building. So we are doing our partnerships. We're also strengthening our parent. We're going to have our spring info night with the kindergarten, showing them on the KRA what we're actually looking for and what students need to know. I mean, we send out the packets, we do the kindergarten screenings, but it seems the kindergarten staff feel each year they're coming in lower. And I know our demographics are changing. You were talking about the EL, and we now have 2 on staff also. I think we have the most EL just because when they're coming in, that's when they aren't testing out. So Joe and I might have the same numbers, but he has 5 grades also that they start to test out. So, I mean, but the population for EL is definitely growing, and it's not just Spanish, it's a lot of different languages that we have in our building. So, are there any questions about what we're doing?
Do we offer any, I love that you guys are getting with the preschools. Before you stated that was like the first thing that came to my mind, because I've got a current preschooler, and I'm like, I wonder if it happens to be Edge. So I love that you guys have already done that. But is there anything that our current curriculum provides that is an online parent resource for incoming students? Is that
Like
just something online? I love that you're going to present, here's what KRA is and here's what we're doing. But is there anything for those parents who want to get a jump start, who might be willing to get a jump start? Are there any resources that we can provide through our current curriculum that wouldn't cost us maybe additional funds or anything like that we can send out to parents?
Not through, there's something
Okay.
not through our current.
Okay.
I mean, essentially, they need to know, like, colors, numbers, can you take something, I mean, even the KRA has a direction, like they watch the child, like, can you take this pencil and go put it in the trash can type of thing, just following directions.
I think that might be, I happen to have a teacher wife, so I'm very fortunate that she knows how to do everything that you're describing. Thank goodness for me. But there's a lot of folks that don't. If there were resources that maybe even we can create internally that would be.
We put packets and all kinds of resources on our website, and we give them a kindergarten screening.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's a little too late.
Yeah, and maybe something Adam can help create some video content or something. I mean, I'm not talking about creating a curriculum or anything, but some of the basic things where we can create 30-second or 90-second videos that maybe that could help.
Coming in ready.
Yeah, I love it. I love the idea.
We're accountable for that. That's why we're going to try to target as many as we can.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that state mandated that they're tested in the fall of kindergarten year? That just amazes me.
That's a benchmark. They have to have a starting point.
Yeah. School, how to sit in a chair, and they're coming from preschool, which is a play-based environment.
Right.
Still keep it somewhat play-based, but it is where they have to sit and attend, and that's hard.
This is a community partnership that we need. I mean, this is something where we need to make sure that, and I think that you're taking all the steps for that. Don't take what I'm saying incorrectly. I think it's something where we need to be very diligent about letting our community know that these are things that are important to the district, and here's why, and here are the little steps that you can take, and whatever we can do to enhance that experience for our incoming students, because they don't all go to preschool. They don't all have the same goals in preschools. Preschools are set up differently. And so for the benefit of our district and for the benefit of the students entering our district, I think that could really be something that we could look at and provide those parents. And I think you guys are doing a phenomenal job. And I think that's a community partnership that we need to continue to build upon and explain to parents what is needed so that
We're starting our Haggerty program with even the 3-year-olds.
Yeah.
I mean, 3, 4, and 5. So when you think by the time they get to kindergarten, they've had it 3 years.
That's fantastic.
If they're hearing the sounds, they have to chop it.
Yeah, my daughter does that.
And they're still keep doing it. I mean, it's amazing to see.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
I also think one of the challenges is finding all the preschools in the area too.
Yeah.
I have a list.
That feed into Monroe, yeah, because,
Bethany Pratt in curriculum, and then Jeff Salyers in preschool, myself, we've been making the calls.
The
And
calls
so
probably.
we're offering to them, you can come observe. We will come out to you and help you
Yeah.
get it set up in your preschool. So, I mean.
And that's what's
started with
interesting
early
because
education. We have the best.
It's right there. We've got a
Right.
good, I appreciate all the
some are
extra
more
work you guys are
receptive
doing.
than others too,
Well, I'm hoping
Yeah.
they're all receptive. We
Yeah.
just started with early ed because we do have a great relationship with them. So.
Yeah.
And then,
Is there, so there's materials that we provide them, or do they have,
they're purchasing the materials. We're just teaching them how to use the materials.
do you know how much that costs for a general preschool to purchase those types of materials?
I think like a couple $100.
Maybe that's something we can talk about.
The manual's like $79.
Oh, it's not, okay.
So maybe something we can talk about potentially adding, that we'll even provide certain materials to make it easier for you, or something like that.
Anything.
Yeah, we want to give you the best opportunity for these kids, so a few $100, if that helps you get commitment from a preschool that otherwise wouldn't.
Well, it helps the kids.
Yeah.
We're really focusing on direct instruction, very explicit instruction with the sounds. And that's helping
Yeah.
also. So that's all the science of reading, I'm sure you've heard all about. So
That's awesome.
I have to commend the staff. They really took that and ran with it. They're very interested in it. A lot of their professional growth plans are on the science of reading. So I see they're really making great strides with that.
Awesome.
okay,
Good.
sounds good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I will just say this, it's not, Jody, how we did it this year compared to years past, hearing the input from the different principals, I like it, and the reason I like it is because now we're using data to figure out where our shortcomings are, and then we're actually making a game plan to attack those shortfalls. And once you put a game plan in place, and it sounds amazing, everyone is committed to the game plan.
That's right.
And that's all you can ask.
I think I can speak for Nancy too. It's one of the goals that we've had is to try to connect all the dots for everyone,
Yeah.
teachers, principals, all of us. And I feel like we've finally made some steps in the right direction so that they're not seeing everything in its own little bucket. I've got all these different things I have to do.
Yeah.
But for them to see how all of it together increases student achievement and all the way up.
All the way, yeah.
I was going to make a very similar comment. I feel extremely positive about everything that was just given. I love that we addressed the good, we addressed our opportunities, and I feel confident in everybody that just presented, even the ones that had to run out the room. I mean, you guys have done a fantastic job in making me feel comfortable that we know where our focus needs to be, and so thank you, all of you guys, for that. That's fantastic. I was going to almost say, is this new? Because this felt new. So I love it. Great job, guys.
All right, moving on to 3.5. Mr. Buskirk.
Well, first, I've been bragging to Mrs. Moore here about how short our board meetings are. So, you guys have all made me a big liar, but no, that was very important information, and I appreciate all you guys sharing. The one thing I want to add to all of that is that the state report card is one measure, and yes, we are going to continue to work, and our goal is 5 stars, but I would say that I am more than thrilled with the results and the hard work of our staff and administrative team. Jody said there at the end that talked about how, it is a group effort and everybody's working together. That graduation rate, that starts with Melissa, and it goes all the way through. So it's every building working together, working on the foundations that start in preschool all the way through. And we are very fortunate that we do have an administrative team that works very well together and works to continually get better. So I do have a quick update, and then I'll turn it over. I did want to, we talked a little bit last time, April 8th is going to be a calamity day for the eclipse, and we will be getting information out to the community, formally informing them as well, even though I talked about it last board meeting as well. I believe the city of Monroe is actually doing they had a fun name for it. It's like some sort of festival for the eclipse, and it was something like Dashing in the Darkness, or it had a catchy name. It sounds interesting. So
DJs, bands, food trucks, the whole night.
Yeah. So, and I do think that somebody, I spoke with Jen Patterson at the city. Someone else is going to be reaching out about possibly using our parking lot as a viewing spot for the eclipse. We're going to charge $150 a spot.
I like it. Can we add some spots between now and then?
No kidding.
Can we make sure that the calendar on the website, obviously the PDF gets updated?
Yep, we will.
Because I know people are going to be looking at that.
The other, next thing I wanted to talk about, quick facility update. Jesse and I met with Kleiningers, the civil engineers, to talk about two quick things. The feasibility of the site of a new building between the three spots that we kind of talked about, and the spot back by the baseball diamond is the best location for a new building. And the other piece of that is that with adding a second drive to main campus where I had it proposed, we wanted to make sure that, one, if we added a new building there, does it still make sense? The worst thing would be to spend money on that drive, and then we put a new building, and they're like, why'd you put it there? And they agree that that is the best spot. They have some good suggestions on how the traffic flow could be immediately improved before a new building, and then how we could change it to continue to have smooth traffic flow with a new building in that location. The piece that I do want to say, just to get it out there for parents, just remember, when you have dismissal and arrival and you have that volume of cars, there's always going to be some sort of wait. I mean, if you go to the mall this weekend, you have to wait. The volume going into a parking lot, there is going to be. But we will continue to work on improving it. I do think the second drive, we've already started with Kleiningers is going to reach out to the county to get that process started. Our goal would be to have it open for the start of the school year next year. So
good.
And I told Robert this past week, I don't know if Tim dealt with it or not, but the changing back to the old drop-off, and I purposefully went at kind of 5-minute intervals on those days to feel the difference, and it was actually phenomenally better, which I didn't think it was problematic. Generally, there was a couple days prior, but that change for at least me dropping off in the morning made it much quicker, and the flow of traffic basically doesn't stop like it was up on the hill prior. So thank you for making that change back. I think that was a good change.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot more sense with the elementary because they don't have the kids walking through at the high school. So high school still continuing to do it the new way. So, and just a reminder that December 6th, we will have the work session to talk about possibilities and looking at funding for the upcoming new building and options moving forward, as well as the MCS is going to be there, our owners, agents, and the architects, just to listen in on things as well. And as we talk about prices of new buildings, they'll be there to help us with that. I sent out the board dates for next school calendar year 2024. We'll add quarterly work session dates on there just as placeholders if need be. And Mr. Leeds, I do believe you talked about 187.
Yeah.
I have not heard one peep out of anybody about 187. I find it very interesting you heard that they're thinking about combining, because my understanding was, I don't remember what the bill from the Senate was that George Lang proposed, but what I heard, they were identical. They were just versions in the Senate and the House in case, so it's interesting that they said they're going to combine them.
This guy just flat said, this is ridiculous. We got two bills up here, and he said, I'm not looking at them. He said, we're going to combine them, or I'm not looking at them.
Well, everything I'm hearing is that they're not going to address it. So,
Interesting.
yep,
That's probably what will happen.
yep,
Kick the can.
yep,
Yep.
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 So,
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Busker.
yes.
All right, moving on to Section 4, Treasurer's Business, Item 4.1.
I recommend approval of the minutes for the regular meeting on October 23rd.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Yes, Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn? Aye. Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 4.2.
I recommend the approval of the treasurer's financial report for October 31st.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn? Aye. Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. And you're going to discuss that in 4.4?
Yes, yes, I will.
Yes. All right, very good. Item 4.3.
I recommend the approval of the bond fund report for the month of October.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved. Oh,
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn? Aye. Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Is all of the money where it's supposed to be?
Yes, I believe it is.
Then aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 4.4.
I recommend the approval of the 5-year forecast for submission to ODE by November 30th.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
I do have, could we do the presentation, please, Logan? It's the second attachment. It's in 4.4. Okay. I'm here to present the November version of the 5-year forecast. Just so you know, I'm sure you're aware that the forecast has 2 submission dates, one in November and an update in May. This one, we are focusing at a high level, since this is workday 14 for me. I am grateful that Holly had some of the work done prior to me getting here, so that was extremely helpful in me getting into the numbers and learning a lot about Monroe, but I also have learned that I have a lot more to learn. I'm keeping it at a high level because I do plan to get more into the details as I meet with departments and buildings to understand more about what has been requested in the current budget. So basically, this is a forecast at a glance. In your packet with the entire forecast, page 8 has the more detailed forecast. This is totals. And a few things to point out here is that we have a projected positive impact on the balance from 24 all the way to 27. It doesn't start to look like deficit spending until 28. Again, since I haven't really gotten into the finer details of things, this is worst case scenario. I do not currently believe we will quite get to that. I think it will be better than projected. But as of now, until I can fine tune these numbers, this is where it is. This is still very favorable. We also have the cash balances still very strong, all the way through 28 even. The other thing I'd like to point out on this page, we do have a budget reserve on there, and currently we've been projecting these. These are at 45% of the annual expenditures. That is something we can look at as we talk about future projects. I know fund balance is something, we will be using for catch-up expenses and so forth, maybe some construction and or other projects that are much needed for the district. So, moving on. Basically, the next few slides are for the current fiscal year. And this just shows that the current fiscal year is projected to end in a positive net amount of $251,000 revenues over expenditures. Again, I think that's very conservative. I think it will be better. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the expenditure page. Okay, and the revenue. This is just a slide that shows kind of the portions from the various sources of revenue. I will like to point out that for the projected local taxes, we did include the county's higher valuations, which, because of the way our millage is set up, it's a 42% valuation increase, but that does not yield a 42% increase in revenue. It's a much smaller revenue, but I want you to know that those are presented in here, projected out, and unless the state, makes any formal changes, we'll continue to project it that way until we hear otherwise. Again, this document is a living document. So many factors can impact it, and we can adjust it at any time. Okay. But that's where we are. I think that's all I have to say about that slide. Oh, and you've already moved on to expenditures. All right. The expenditures is something that I definitely want to dig more into the details. If you would have noticed the comparison of expenditures between FY23 actuals and the FY24 projected, there are a lot. It's an increase, a fairly substantial increase, and that is partly because we have held off on a lot of things over the years. So the FY24 budget includes several new positions. It includes some catch-up expenditures in all areas, textbooks, equipment, a little bit of capital, and when I say equipment, I mean materials, I'm sorry. And there's also a fair amount of personal services, or purchase services in here. So when we look at this, the personnel costs, those will flow through into the future, but these also have a little bit, we'll have some ESSER money coming back in, or positions that were funded by ESSER, they're starting to come back in, and hopefully by FY25, those should be fully back into the general fund. Those are all included in these projections. The purchase services number, that's one I've struggled with over the course of the last week, just because I can't quite identify exactly what that is. And one of the things I want to accomplish during my meetings is how much of that is contingency and how much of it is a recurring versus a non-recurring expense. So right now in that projection, we are establishing almost a new base with our FY24 budget, but I want to get down into the details of how much of that base really should be included in those future years. So right now it's worst case scenario, and these new bases are kind of flowing through, but they can be tweaked, and that's what I'll be working on in the coming months.
Okay.
All right, next. And this is just a quick overview showing similar to what that first slide was as far as our revenue versus expenditures. And you can just see our revenue is outpacing our expenditures until the 28 year for the projections. And again, I do think we will be better than that. And then on to the next one. This is showing the history from our 20 to 23. The historical average increase on revenues is about 4%. In our current projections from 24 to 28, it has gone up to about 5.42%. And I would say the majority of that is property tax related. But there is also some increases in our foundation as well, and state funding. Our expenses on this one, the historical average change has been 4.65%, and then that's where you see this change in our budgeting for FY24 with those catch-ups and the additional staffing. So we see that 8.4 projected annual increase, which is a fairly good difference. But this all rolls into the next one.
So the reality is, no matter what, no matter how we look at it, our cash on hand is still very, very healthy. This shows for our cash balance, this is how much cash we have on hand, which basically is saying we have an entire year's worth of cash balance. And we will continue to have those strong numbers, even with a small deficit spend in '28. It's still going to be a pretty healthy balance. The next slide, this is, these last few demographic slides, they were presented by the our forecasting software. It just kind of gives you a perspective on our spend. The enrollment, it does show that we are projecting limited enrollment. And as far as we know, that's trend-based. We don't have any reason to tweak it any way or another. So we do have a limited growth. And then the next slide just takes that enrollment compared to our annual spend and our projected annual spend and gives us, an estimated cost per pupil. And then this last one breaks it down into a daily cost. And then this is an interesting chart over here where it kind of breaks it out into, okay, well, how much is a resident typically paying for the student's education? And it's about 24% because this is factoring in only the residential portion of our property taxes. So it's an interesting slide. And with that said, the monthly report goes hand in hand with this forecast because while this is forecasted at the high level, the monthly is, our monitoring of how we're doing against this forecast. That's something I would like to continue to work on, and I will do better monthly reports in the future. I used the software for this one, but there are still a lot of questions that I have to be able to fully understand some of the parameters in the report. And when I get the back-end information on the details of the budgets, I'll be able to know more where these numbers are coming from. So for now, I'm just thinking that, we're somewhat worst-case scenario. And, if it's in the budget, we might spend it. So that's my approach at this point. But I do feel strongly from the conversations that I have had, in addition to the meetings I've had, that we have a very strong team here throughout the buildings, and they are very good with their money. They don't waste it, and they do hold back maybe sometimes a little bit more than, they should at this point, and that comes from being part of in fiscal emergency in years past, but they have some really good habits from that. Yep. So we are ready to give them back some of the tools maybe they've missed over time, and we're working on that. And then, of course, we'll have our December work session with Mr. Brossart regarding facilities, and so all of this could change yet again. Exactly. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any questions?
Good report.
No, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you very much.
I thought the last slide she showed about the amount of money that comes from residentials is really, that's a really interesting slide because we are very fortunate at Monroe that we have a good mixture of residential and business and not every school district is like that. So coming from my previous district, it was heavily reliant on residential taxes. And it's not that it isn't here. Every school district, state of Ohio, relies on property taxes. But that's why it's so important for us to continue to have a positive working relationship with the city. And you've got that balancing act of you want to attract businesses to Monroe, and part of the way they do that is sometimes to give them tax breaks. So we have to continue to have that positive relationship. So even if they do give those tax breaks to attract the additional businesses to Monroe, that they're working with us, so it doesn't completely cut us out of the loop. So it's that balance there. So.
Well, way back when we established that they can't give over 50% without having the school approve it, that's one way of us to keep control.
Yep.
So.
Any other questions? All right. Ms. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn? Aye. Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 4.5.
Sorry. It is recommended that the board approve the following stipends for teaching staff, which are from various colleges.
Okay. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Any questions? All right. Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn, sorry. Aye. Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to Section 5, Superintendent's Personnel Business, item 5.1.
All right, it's recommended the board approve the following resignations.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any questions? All right, Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn? Aye. Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 5.2.
It's recommended the board approve the hiring of the new employee for the remainder of the school year. It is our school safety and security officer who's been patiently waiting for this last 2 hours.
All right, may I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Any questions? All right, Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn? Aye. Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. Brickles.
And before we move on to 5.3, we will make it official. Because this does everything. Welcome aboard.
Oh my gosh.
I've had a nice education here tonight. Of course, I come from the competition panel.
Longest meeting that I've ever been a part of.
Oh, man.
And I come from Ross Police Department. Okay. So I retired from the Sheriff's Office, and I worked for Ross for the last 7 years. This is my 40th year. I'm transitioning out of law enforcement into something a little easier. But yeah, it was kind of funny. I always drive past Ross School and says, it's my 5-star school on the marquee. Because I always wonder what that was, and I got the education. Now you know. I know. Well, join us for a quick photo. Absolutely.
Welcome aboard.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks again. Welcome aboard, bro.
Thank you. Congratulations. No problem. We're excited.
All right, item 5.3.
It's recommended the board approve the following substitutes.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Any questions on 5.3? All right, Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn? Aye. Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 5.4.
It is recommended the board approve the following extracurricular contracts.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions? All right, Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mrs. Hagedorn? Aye. Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. And item 5.5.
It is recommended to approve the following revisions from the previous extracurricular contracts.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Any questions? All right, Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. And moving on to Section 6, Superintendent's Other Business.
It is recommended the board approve the following donations.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Any questions?
Thank you for the donations.
Yes,
No,
thank you
thank you.
very much. All right. Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn? Aye. Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 6.2.
It's recommended to approve the contract with the Warren County ESC for consulting services.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second. Oh.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. It was close. May I, but my right, I have a stronger hearing.
Stronger hearing on the right side. That's what it is. That's why he has to,
Stronger hearing.
which is surprising from the people on this side. As loud as we are, can hear better on this side.
Any questions with 6.2? All right. Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn? Aye. Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 6.3.
It's recommended the board approve the indoor track and field season beginning on December 1st.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Any questions on 6.3? All right, Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn? Aye. Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 6.4.
It's recommended the board approve the contract with Comfort Solutions for preventive maintenance.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions?
Is this the same company that we've been using or a new company?
Same.
Same company? Okay. So we do this every year?
Yes.
This,
I'm not sure if they might bid on in a while, it's $10,000 and
okay.
Yep.
If it goes above 10, you have to have it on the agenda, so it's probably been below that in the
Gotcha.
past, so.
Just cost of services. Okay. Any other questions? All right, Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn? Aye. Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Buskirk. And before we move to Section 7, adjournment, we'll go with comments from the board, starting with you, Mr. Leeds.
You know, this being Thanksgiving week, we got a lot to be thankful for at school. I mean, as demonstrated here with the principals on how far we've come in the rating, state rating is unbelievable. And it's a heck of a job being done by, as Jody said, the parents and the kids and the staff. Tremendous. And I liked it. Is Eric still here?
They are interviewing football candidates.
Okay. Well, the job that he did with the state for the tournament games, I think, was tremendous. And we heard a lot of great comments on the sideline from the teams that were here and their staff. But good facility and well run.
Yep.
So that's all I've got. Happy Thanksgiving.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Mr. Fulham.
Here we go.
High five to the following student athletes who have signed their letter of intent to participate at the next level in their respective sports. Ty Granaste, boys soccer, Northern Kentucky University, go Norse. Sarah Deaton, girls soccer, Wittenberg University. Evan Braun, baseball, Walsh University. Peyton Corthell, basketball and track and field, University of Mount Union. Andrew Wilcox, cross country and track and field, University of Dayton. Maddie Duff, volleyball, Wittenberg University. Brooklyn McComas, soccer, Marshall University. I've had the privilege of getting to see each of these students compete here at Monroe, and something that strikes me even more than their ability on the field or court is their success off. Each student has been a fantastic representative of this district, and I would like to wish all of them much success as they soon move into their collegiate careers. High five to our fall athletic programs for another fun and successful season in Hornet Country. We saw records broken, progressed as individuals and teams, and shared in some memories that will last a lifetime. Thank you to all of our seniors, and congratulations on all that you've accomplished during your time in Monroe. High five to all of our fall students and staff of the quarter. Your efforts in the classroom is a reflection of your character, individual abilities, and dedication to our district's vision and core values. It was wonderful to celebrate with you, and I look forward to recognizing our next students and staff of the quarter in January. It's a fantastic, Robert, I'm so glad that we brought that to the district because I think it was a fantastic event and really gets to showcase all the way from kindergarten through 12, amazing students and staff. So make sure you guys are paying attention and look out for those next group of students. It's an awesome thing. High five to the Monroe Elementary's Girls on the Run program and our 32 participating students who celebrated the end of another successful season last week at Cincinnati's Girls on the Run 5K. Girls on the Run inspires participants of all abilities to recognize their individual strengths while building a sense of confidence and connection in a team setting. Volunteer coaches facilitate lessons that blend physical activity with life skill development to enable participants to adapt to whatever comes their way. I would like to formally welcome Mrs. Moore to the table this evening for the longest meeting we've had since I've been on board. I look forward to working with you for many years to come, focusing our energy on continuing the positive growth within our district and providing our students with the best educational opportunities possible. And finally, I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. Please enjoy your fall break with your friends and family.
Very good.
Good.
Mr. Carpenter.
All right. I'll keep it short. Again, I just want to congratulate everybody for the first student of the quarter, but also to thank everybody that was involved in that. I'm sure that was not easy to plan or execute, but thank you for everybody. I mean, even the teachers, like everybody who wrote just like the letter of recommendations, there's a lot that went into that, and I really enjoyed it, so thank you. I don't know if I mentioned it last time, but if I did, I'm going to mention it again. You have to just deal with it. But the fall play was fantastic. So everybody those kids worked really, really hard, and they pulled it off. It was a wonderful presentation. Like, it was great. So just congratulations to those students, Mr. Longyear, and yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Mrs. Hagedorn.
So I wanted to start off with last week, I believe it was last week, time's kind of coming together. I was able to attend the OSBA convention, and I went to lots of sessions, and I learned a lot. And a couple of things that I just wanted to mention was I learned about, one session I went to was cultivating hope for the students to help their students have success. And I'll be more than happy to talk more in depth with anybody about this. One of the sessions that I went to, which I found very fascinating, and it kind of goes with a little bit Butler Tech was talking about, was the artificial intelligence that's being used out there, and that currently 30% of students are using the artificial intelligence to write papers, which is kind of a challenge that the teachers are going to be having to deal with in the future. And also, when using artificial intelligence, that it's not always factual, that artificial intelligence will make up facts that's not accurate, and that students are kind of unaware, and teachers and even businesses that need to become more aware of that and the repercussions of using artificial intelligence. I also went to a session where the Sycamore School District talked about building their new building, and one of the things that I thought was fascinating, and I thought we could talk about it when we get to that phase and however long it's going to take, was to put a time capsule in the building as we build it. I was like, that is like the coolest idea, is to have like different grades put information into a time capsule, and like we'll have to figure that out, how that'll look or where it should go. So that was kind of interesting. So it was a good time. I'm glad I went, learned a lot, and I will definitely be going back next year, and more of us should go if we can work on that. Yes. So another thing I wanted to talk to was shout out to Mr. Buskert for the student of the quarter ceremony. I agree, that was fabulous. And like Mr. Carpenter had said, everybody that put into it, it was a good event, and I really enjoyed it, and it was fun to watch all the different age groups, and especially the first one, the kindergartner that was nervous to go up there. That was so precious. I was like, oh, so cute.
It was my red hair, probably frightened them.
Is that what it was?
I understand.
Yes.
I understand.
I get it.
Yes.
I know there's going to be a clown there, so.
It was a good time. So anybody that didn't attend, it should come to the next one. We put it out there to have more people attend to see that. I'd like to congratulate Andrew Wilcox and all of his accomplishments with cross-country. I used to go to cross-country meets when my oldest ran cross-country, and I understand like all the effort and how it goes into it. And as a spectator, to start at the finish, or start at the beginning line, run to the middle of the course, to watch them run by for 5 seconds, just for the parents to run to the next spot. I mean, it's just a great environment. I love it. It was fun when I was doing that. Also, I'd like to thank Jody Long and then all of the principals for their presentations. It was a lot of good data that was given out today, and it's very interesting, and I really enjoyed that. The improvements that we can make and that we have, and the things that we're doing well at. It was just good to see all that put together. Yeah, that's all I have.
Thank you very much. I will echo, as I always do, a lot of what is said. Number one, the student and staff of the quarter, as I told you that night, that was a great event, and I look forward to those in the future. To echo what Mr. Lead said, as I was leaving the press box on the way down, I think I got Eric did a great job of organizing it, but we got the letter from the OHSAA today. He did. And then also just about 5 parents said they wished that the next week's game could be played here. So which speaks volumes. And then also to the principals, Jody, thank you. Out of all the curriculum scoring meetings that we've had, that one connected all the dots very well. So I would like to keep that going, because that was great. Fantastic. Thank you very much. And lastly, I can't believe it's going to be Thanksgiving. This year has literally flown by. But happy Thanksgiving to everyone, and enjoy your week off.
Yeah.
All right, with that being said, I would like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 8:14 p.m. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. What are you guys just going to wait here? All right, Mrs. Moore, please call the roll. Oh, and I will say, welcome to your first meeting. And I will say, it was going to be very hard. I talked to myself all day to say, I'm so used to, for the last 3 years, I've been saying, Mrs. Cahall, please call the roll. So I talked myself into it today. Do not make a mistake. So I did not make a mistake today. So
Very good.
all right. So Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn. Aye. Mr. Leeds.
Aye.
Mr. Fulham.
Aye.
Mr. Grant.
Aye. Motion carried. Meeting adjourned.
Meeting adjourned. Great.
You surpassed my bedtime.
did.
I did not sign up to like 15.
I was nervous. I think it got better.
We used to start at 6:30 and end at 7.
Thank you.
Amy, you did good.
The longest meeting of my life.
Phil definitely had longer meetings.
Did he? Oh, no, I